Welcome to the A New Insight podcast, empowering and inspiring your journey to optimal health. Hosted by Dr. Supatra Tovar, clinical psychologist, registered dietitian, fitness expert, and author of Deprogram Diet Culture. Rethink your relationship with food, heal your mind, and live a diet-free life. I follow my guests' journey to optimal health, providing you with the keys to unlock your own wellness path. Tune in and evolve with us. Welcome back, everybody. We are back for the second half of our amazing interview with clinical psychologist and newly published author, Dr. Richard LaBrie. Rich gave us some really amazing insight into his writing journey and what inspires him, and I cannot wait to pick his brain some more. Welcome back, Rich.
Thanks.
So your book, definitely, it opens in darkness. There's a lot of anger, despair, even envy of the dead. Yet, reviewers consistently describe this undercurrent of hope. That is also what I got out of reading it. Do you see hope as something earned, discovered, or simply something that refuses to disappear?
Well, first of all, I'm really glad people see hope in, the veil of darkness of some of these poems, because that's what I meant, when I set out on putting together this book in that order. I kind of go back to Erik Erikson. He's one of my favorites. I guess, creators of developmental models in psychology. And I think hope is innate in us if it's not completely destroyed early on. And, in Erikson's first stage, just after birth, there is a psychosocial battle between trust and mistrust. And the outcome is hope if we have enough trust in our environment to take care of us. And I'm also interested in the battle between cynicism and the more healthy, hopeful skepticism that we need to remain curious and to keep hope alive in us in the face of difficulties. And the book does deal with, I think, a lot of the difficulties in our world and survival, in our world and in our society and in our ecology. So I guess the book has a lot of mediated skepticism and hope and growth, but I push the edges to get there. I go to some of the extremes.
Give me a picture of healthy skepticism. What does that actually look like?
So I think in the age of social media and the internet, we curate ourselves so much, and we always have, as a species. But what we see is not always exactly how life is for that person presenting that narrative. Whereas if we take a cynical view, there's not really much room for hope or moderation or growth. So hopeful skepticism. Be curious, question, run it through your own filters, whatever it is you come across, and also be aware of your own biases as you take in that information. I don't know if those are words or wisdom, but that's what
Sure. It's just, it sounds like trust but verify.
Yeah.
I like that.
It's a good phrase.
So several of your poems confront the psychological toll of modern life. We have technology, capitalism, environmental anxiety. I have that. Cultural fragmentation. I've also got that. As a clinician, how do you see the external world shaping the internal emotional landscape right now? Because, whoa, what a time we're in right now.
Yeah. I was thinking the other day that our cell phones are like dog whistles. They just keep pulling us, and our ears go up and we turn to them. And we don't have any control unless we set all our settings perfectly over how frequent they're going to stimulate us to turn towards them. And you layer that on the complexity that's thrown at us to just manage our lives. I work with some older adults who've been brought to tears by the automatic expectations of society. Let's say their doctor's office, who books them an appointment and then has them confirm it on their cell phone, and they can't even text because they're 80 years old and they really are not comfortable with it, or their hands shake too much. And when they go to an appointment, the people behind the desk just assume that they are proficient, and it increases their stress. But I think we're all sort of trying to adjust to the increased pressure of what's out there. And, then there's the climate, there's the shrinking resources on the planet. We all feel it. But I also try to weave into the poems, obviously, hope and growth, and remind us of the human condition, that we're connected to other people. We experience love. We experience heartbreak. We ponder the future. We have our own existential experiences. We become philosophical. We become concrete. We have to just survive. I mean, all of these things are blended together, and I think they show up in different poems throughout the collection.
Yes, I do think that our focus has been captured, but it doesn't have to remain captured. I think that if we can use our devices a little bit more intentionally rather than just slip into an algorithm or, just be doom scrolling the news on our devices, we can actually use them for good. But I think people get conditioned to look only for the bad and what's going wrong, and they miss out on what's going right. So oftentimes when I'm feeling that way, I just go take a walk outside of my house. There's nature everywhere. There's these owls that live in this tree next to me. I'm obsessed with these owls. And so I will go out and I will search for them. And when I find them, I am reminded that the earth is strong and will outlive us at the very least.
Yeah.
And that, there's a lot more time than we think that there is, especially when we decide to take it and we're not just sucked into, these little boxes in our hands.
I love the owl thing, and the owls they're not curating themselves when they present themselves. When they're hooting, they're not hooting their best self or their best vacation. And they're also not like acting like a news station manager who says lead with blood or lead with danger.
Yeah.
They're just hooting. And,
yes. Although I got to say, a couple days ago, I saw that my favorite, Mr. Alley is his name. I saw him on top of the roof, and he was messing with these two crows. And the crows were not having any of Mr. Alley, and they started attacking him. And then they were biting off his feathers over my head. I was like, oh my God, it's like Mutual of Omaha's Wild World or something. He lived, thank God. But there was, I think, a little bit of owl blood in there. I was
some
watching
kind of,
yeah,
primitive
Owl News
nature.
at 4.
Right.
Okay, so back to this topic. In your preface talks about developing a kind of third eye in psychotherapy. You're observing yourself, the client, and the world. How does that observational stance influence your creative process?
I find it to be very similar, but I think I mentioned earlier the trance that takes over I think for anyone in a creative flow. And it doesn't have to be creating art. It can be, rearranging your furniture. But for me, usually the early lines of a poem, they drop in from somewhere. I don't know where. I don't know when it's going to happen. If it's the middle of the day and I can't write, I'll put it in my notes. And then usually in the morning when I'm free and clear, I'll grab it and try to get back into that trance. But the trance is three eyes. It's pulling on my own experience. It's pulling on a viewpoint of that experience. It's pulling on how will these formulating rhythms of words fit into another reader's experience, and what do they reflect about the world. It's a soup that I can't quite put into perfect words. And it does remind me of what happens in the psychotherapy room, because it's, what's happening is not all verbal. There's unconscious, there's nonverbal, there's a feeling between the people in the room, whether it's family, couple, me and another person. And then there is the concrete, there is the word exchange. And then sometimes there's a pause and there's the emotions, as you know, that just sit in the silence. I haven't really seen that captured in other places very much, except maybe occasionally in a song or a movie scene, maybe not a whole film, but a certain scene, or in a poem. And the movie Sentimental Value has silent moments where the actor Stellan Skarsgård, it just looks for the longest time at his daughter, and there's so much power in the way they look at each other, especially towards the end. Somehow trying to capture that is what inspires me if the words start dropping in.
I love that. And for people that are like, what the heck is flow?
Yeah.
It's really interesting. I don't know if you ever saw the TED Talk by Jill Bolt Taylor called My Stroke of Insight. It's so good. She's a
Yeah.
neuroscientist who witnesses her own stroke. And she has a stroke on the left side of her brain, which is all of our like mathematical processes and numbers and logical thinking. And as that's starting to slip away, and it's a miracle, she dials a number. She can't even talk at that point. And whoever was on the other end of the line figured out something was wrong. Otherwise, she would not be with us today. But as all of her left brain processes were like falling away, her right brain came like online. And what she experienced was like this, connection to the universe and to consciousness, and her creativity just like came online. And so I like to think of the flow as delving into your nervous system so that you are so calm that you can take that offline for a little bit and let that take over, because it's not a cognitive process. There's no thinking your way into your right brain. There's no thinking your way into flow. You have to just relax into it and allow. And that's what you're doing with your creativity. I think that that's amazing. And that's what we're doing in the office. That's what's happening right now. We're in this conversation, and that's all that there is. And it's just flowing naturally. And I always recommend to people to try to achieve that state, because once you do, you actually tune into your intuitive self. And when you tune in, rather than checking out of yourself, rather than dissociating or, going on your device, your body tells you everything, which is amazing. That's what I'll tap into before a session, and I'll know what to talk about. It's crazy weird, but I'll get this like intuitive sense, like, I think I'm going to explore this. And that's always the right place to go. And I think relaxing into ourselves more and more can provide us with so much more enrichment, so much more information. So I love that you do that to get into your creativity.
The way that you made me think there of, and I'm sure you've experienced this, when a client comes in the next week and says, "Oh, you said that thing last week and it made such a difference." And we're we're going, I wonder what I said, because we were
Totally.
we were in a trance.
Yeah.
We were flowing with the client's energy and with our own training and with our own um, intuitive sense, and it's not out of a manual. And so, yeah, I totally agree. It's a beautiful thing if you can capture it and then practice it.
Yes. And I think there are ways that you can start to practice that. Like I said, is just go outside, take a walk, and just be in it. Listen to the birds and really just be a part of whatever, piece of nature you're in, and let your brain just go offline for a bit and then just see what pops up. It's amazing when you do. So let's get back to the book. The collection, it treats human darkness like rage, shame, violence, not as a moral failure, but as a part of transformation. How do you help people, whether it's in therapy or through your writing, move from self judgment to curiosity?
Oh boy. Um, well, first I have to thank the reviewer for being so generous and positive, because I'm not sure I'm there yet. I still see moral failure.
Hmm.
Um, so there must be some generosity in the undertone of my poems that I'm not aware of in myself. So I'll take that. Um, and do people think I'm that nice? Maybe. I'm not sure. Um, but I go back to curiosity. Um, it's the key to growing. It's the key to understanding, between us. And, um, sometimes in the poems, I'm exploring a concept, whether it's violence or rage. Not necessarily, well, I think I'll probably talk about that a little later. Oh no, I didn't get to it. Let's do it here. So there's a poem called Apology, in which I kind of took the concept of post-traumatic rage and isolation, and I ran with that. It wasn't exactly me, but it was something I could tap into. And it's a pretty dark poem. It has a little bit of hope, but it's somewhat about a person who has seen so much violence that then they went on a 10-year journey of almost self-punishing violence themselves by attacking others.
Mm.
Um, and I guess when I look at the poem, I don't judge that person, the narrator. I am not looking at it as a moral failure. I'm sort of just presenting it. So that's a complicated question. I'm not sure if I'm answering it well, but um,
Well, I think that all have these darker sides of ourselves. And
mhm,
oftentimes we don't want to acknowledge that, or we don't want to delve into that. We don't want to look at it.
mhm,
And I think that that's what you tend to do, not just in this work, but in your work with clients. When we would sit and have our supervision sessions, I think a lot of the probing that you encouraged me to perform was to explore some of these darker aspects of the clients, or even myself.
mhm,
And I think that that's hard because it makes us feel uncomfortable, but there's something valuable in that discomfort. I think that there's always a valuable lesson to get out of being uncomfortable. And I
mhm,
think you do that. I don't want to necessarily qualify it, but as better or worse, but I think that you just do that,
mhm,
period. And there's a lot of value in that. And I think that that's what a lot of readers get out of this work, is that you have to kind of sit there and be uncomfortable. Like, but what are you learning as you are uncomfortable?
mhm.
And how does this darkness help you transform as opposed to prevent you from transforming?
Yeah. Well, and I think that's what the structure of the book helps with. In the preface, I kind of say to people, I hope you can get into the other sections once you read the Nigredo section, because it is the first fire. It's the burning of the self down to ashes and then rebuilding. But I don't want to leave out the hopeful poems. There's a poem called I forget what it's called. It's called it's the next to the last poem, and it's really about the point of view of the person writing it is that they're withdrawn and maybe not willing to step into the relational aspects of life. And I wrote it really as a dedication to my grandkids. I have a 4-month-old and a 2.5-year-old a grandson and a granddaughter. And it was sort of a voice that shifts in the poem towards deciding to stay in the game, in the fray of humans' difficulties for their sake. And the final poem of the book, even though it is about someone's last words, they're the most hopeful. It's the most hopeful last word I've ever heard. And that is somewhat of a true story, not about a client, but an old friend from 30 years ago. And there are poems peppered through the collection that are quite hopeful and buoyant, really, if you can look closer at them. So
Love it. I love it. I mean, darkness, if we didn't have the darkness, we wouldn't know what the light was. So in the book, there's this powerful tension between connection and isolation. In writing poetry, is that an act of solitude, communication, both? What is it?
I would say both. We need our isolation. We need our sense of self, our individualism, our individuation, as we'd say in our field. But we're also relational creatures. And the Darwinian concept of survival of the fittest is really overblown. I think Tom Hartman said in a movie that was about a lot of aspects about humanity. He had said that Darwin really only used that phrase once or twice in his writings, but that he used words like community and cooperation more often. We don't have sharp teeth. We don't have strong arms. We don't run very fast. We're not destroyers. Our species doesn't survive through sheer power. So we need our time alone. We need our time with our own individual growth. And so toggling between those two is important. And allowing for that flow, that trance state that might be more authentic to our true dream state is important to developing our individual identity, and then sharing it with others or finding how to have it intersect with others is where I'm coming from.
Yes.
I don't know if the book ends up giving that message, but that's where my heart beats.
I think it does. And I mean, you can just look at the powerful example of Punch the Monkey right now.
Mm-hmm.
And he, for those of you who don't know, he's this adorable little monkey who was abandoned by his mom. And he was given a little IKEA orangutan stuffy. And the world fell in love with him because of his attachment to this stuffy. But it went beyond that. It was, will he get accepted by the macaw tribe? Please don't let Punch be alone. And then just recently he was accepted into the tribe, and there's a beautiful picture of him being embraced by one of the elder monkeys, and the world rejoiced because it's a powerful example of us as humans. We absolutely need connection. We need it, or we do not survive. There's been studies on the orphans in Romania and them not getting enough, human touch in their early, few months of life, and how that absolutely negatively affected their functioning. We are, communal, social, human creatures, but we also do need time for reflection, for it deeper inner work. And I think when you can find a balance with that, that's when you really are, in synergy and in harmony with yourself. So let's, talk about moving through all of those 4 stages. What does wholeness mean to you now? Is it peace? Is it acceptance? Integration? What is it?
Yeah, I was thinking about this when I saw your question. So going back to Erik Erikson, the 8th stage of life is hopefully brings us towards what he would call a psychosocial virtue of wisdom. But I think wholeness involves reaching little levels of wisdom throughout every stage of our life, all 8 stages, and then building on those. So as an infant, as a toddler, as a school-age child, as an adolescent, we have little moments of wisdom in each of those. And if they can roll into each other, and we can hopefully be honest with ourselves, and if we're lucky enough, if we're privileged enough to sort of find a pathway that matches where our heart beats, I think that can add up to some wholeness. But self-reflection is necessary. And maybe that's what writing these poems was about for me too. It's an interesting way to self-reflect, but use the material that the world brings to you. And again, I'm not meaning my clients. I think I would have written these poems anyway, at my age and having experienced life. So, something I like to say to young clinicians getting into this field is try to learn as much as you can, because every client that comes to you is going to bring you something that's unique to them. And maybe their passion is gardening, maybe it's cars, maybe it's investing, maybe it's being with family, whatever. And to try to have some knowledge of those things. And if you don't, ask them to teach it to you as the clinician. And to me, that's a part of wholeness, is kind of participating in some awareness of what's happening, among other people and in our society.
I love it.
So-
Well, Rich,
yes.
I would love it if you would grace us with another reading of your poetry, and then we are running low on time after you've done reading that. If you can give us our listeners a way to find you and read your book, that would be great.
Okay. Well, so the I'm self-publishing, which I found is more and more of a growing thing, and the book will be available in bookstores, and on Amazon, and on my own website, which is called Wheeltown Press. But wheel is spelled W-E-A-L, and which is the Old English and Middle English word for wellness. So Wheeltown Press. And April 7th is the release date. And I was thinking of reading a poem called Evel Knievel, if you agree.
Please.
Okay, so a little context on this. For younger people, Evel Knievel was a daredevil motorcycle jumper, and he would ride his motorcycle up a ramp and over a variety of wild things. 5 buses lined up in a row. He was going to do the Grand Canyon. I'm not sure if he ever did, but he did the Snake River Canyon. He crashed a lot. He broke nearly every bone in his body throughout his career. And it was an interesting time, mostly in the 70s. And I was an adolescent during his heyday. And here is a poem about that time of life. This one is actually autobiographical and confessional. Not all of them are, like I say in the preface of the book. So here we go. Evel Knievel. He'd come to the suburbs for a post-event promo rally after some jump I couldn't attend. I was 11. Humid heat wicked the sweat down off my elbow from my armpits. My polyester tee too tight. My puberty smell shameful and new. Every experience tunneled in embarrassment. But I liked motorcycles. I rode, too, a Honda XR75, alone in the woods, a crazy little thing capable of 60 miles per hour. To survive the 70s is like a candy fever dream you didn't deserve. I had been rehearsing how to ask my mother to buy me my first deodorant. A growing child still, but I could nail the clutch and 4-speed gearbox around a field of shorn wheat, sliding perfectly through turns. Life and risk and dreams of muscles as I hid from my body odor. Evel said stuff, people cheered. He was above me on the makeshift carnival stage, and I liked the leather, but the cape was questionable. Leaving childhood in the recognition of my armpit reek froze me for long moments. Newly considering my corporeal presence on earth, caught in a toggle between my looming adult power and death, because I could see the leap now, child, adult, dead. Standing below the leathered man who defied it over buses. A yell broke my tunnel vision. Someone said heart attack. Time crunched, and they carried a middle-aged man past me toward fairground medics, his face purple, still bouncing against the jolts of their carry. I don't know what Evel said, his cape useless to the stilled man, his legend a benefit to us, flying with intention into the hope of a better landing.
Wow. Powerful. Makes me not miss puberty at all, though.
Yeah.
Well, Rich, we're out of time. Unfortunately, I could talk to you about this stuff all day. It's really an amazing piece of work, and I'm so proud of you and excited for what this will hold. And I think the world will benefit when they do read your poetry. So thank you for joining me.
Well, thanks for having me. It's nice to talk about this. This is my first podcast about the book. So thank you.
Well, excited to have you on, and you're always welcome back. You know that.
Okay. All right, Supatra.
And thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. And I am looking forward to the next exciting interview and really hope you join me next time.
Thanks for tuning into the A New Insight podcast. Please remember, the contents shared on this podcast is for entertainment purposes only and does not constitute medical advice. You can find us anywhere podcasts are streaming, on YouTube at my.anu.insight and at anu-insight.com under the A New Insight podcast tab. And follow us on our socials at my.anu.insight on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Threads for more updates. Tune in next time and evolve with us.